Welcome back onto the next episode of the Faster Beyond 50 podcast. It's great to have you with us, and it is a Q&A episode today. My name is Brad Nadauld. We've got the coach Lindsay Parry with us once again. Lindsay, nice to see you. Nice to catch up.
How's it, Brad? Yeah, let's see if we can help some runners with their issues and get them back on track.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got some great questions that have been submitted. If you would like to get your question answered on this podcast, all you need to do is click on the link that is in the description of this video on YouTube, or if you're listening on your favorite podcast player, it is in the show notes. So just click on the little I button in your podcast player. You can click through and leave your question. We do filter the video questions to the top. So if you want to jump the queue, please leave us a video question. We also have an opportunity for you to leave a voicemail, like a voice note. You can do that too. And we filter those to the top. So we do prefer the video because video and audio because we get tired of our own voices most of the time. So we love hearing from members of our community, and that's exactly what we've got today. So we're going to start it off with Cassie, and this is Cassie's question.
Hi there. I had a question for you. I'm having problems on my left hip, and it's been that way for a while, off and on. One thing I've noticed is that on my shoes, the lateral side, specifically on my right foot, I eat away at the shoe quite a bit, whereas on the left side, not as much. So the hip problem's on the left side, but I'm hitting the outside of my right foot significantly more than my left foot. Are they connected? Is there a problem? And if there is, how do I fix it? All help appreciated. Thank you.
Cool stuff, Lindsay. What's the deal with Cassie's shoe wear and her issues?
Look, so whenever you've got one-sided issues, in other words, the same issue always crops up, then we know that there is a problem. And the shoe wear possibly related, but just to start out by saying that it's not abnormal to have that sort of biomechanical difference between left and right. And when most people have a look, you wouldn't normally have quite that broader difference, I guess. But often one side wears quicker than the other side. That could be linked to a little bit to biomechanics, but it can also just be linked to something as simple as the camber of the roads that you consistently run on. And of course, that camber can also be playing into this issue. So yeah, I always feel like I wish I could give people like the one-shot dart in the bullseye. This is the problem. But the reality is that with running, as you've just heard, there's just always a lot of variables. So to me, a few things that potentially could be causing that is some sort of rotation within the pelvis. So, when you rotate, and particularly if there's a torsion where one side is shifting across, that can cause a tightness. And the tightness is normally on the affected side. So that does normally give you a clue as to which side that rotation is from. But really doing a well-balanced strength training protocol can help to improve that with some flexibility. But it's the kind of thing that generally is easier for a therapist to A, test for properly, and B, then to maybe just help to manipulate and get out. So your fixes are to have a look at what kind of imbalances you may have left and right, front and back, just purely from a stability point of view. That'll also give you a clue if there's maybe something that's out of kilter. If your stability on one side is way better than the stability on the other side, that could be showing you to a problem. Have a look at your regular running route. So this is a big one that could be having an impact. So typically the problems on the left-hand side will be linked to what side of the road you run on. So in South Africa, we tend to have more problems on the left-hand side because we run on the right-hand side. So there's slightly more wear and slightly higher impact force on the left-hand side than the right-hand side. In this instance, it feels like you are running more on the left-hand side of the road, which is maybe why you're getting more wear on the outside of that shoe. But the issues are on the left-hand side. So that I feel like is more linked to a biomechanical issue or how you sit. So if you're always sitting with, or mostly sit with one leg crossed over the other, as an example, that can also cause like that those hips to be out a little bit, and it could lead to the tightening of the hip flexor on that left-hand side. And if the hip flexor on the left-hand side is too tight, that's going to cause you to rotate left-hand side slightly forward and rotate it, and then that's going to put more pressure on the glute and the hamstring on the left-hand side. So those are a couple of things that could be at play. And then I think the shoes will be a combination of that combined with the camber of where you are running. So when you do get opportunities, try and run more on the shoulder of the road rather than on the road itself, or where it's safe to do so, look at alternating the side of the road that you run on. Yeah, if this is happening when you're running on a treadmill, for example, then that points to something very different. Then I would actually say what you want to do is have a recording of your running from behind and from the side, and so that we can see if there's something mechanical happening in the hips themselves, and what sort of exercises we can do to then help balance that out a little better, and that'll hopefully improve the wear and tear a little bit. Might not, well, I doubt it'll fix it completely, but it may also then just help that little bit less stress going through the glute.
Thank you very much for that question, Cassie. Much appreciated. Lindsay, I was laughing to myself as you were talking about like how things differ from like one side to the next. And I asked you this the other day. I bought a new pair of running shoes, and it's the newer model. And obviously they've changed the width of the bottom of the shoe a bit. And I was looking at it and it looked like somebody had literally taken a knife and sliced the side of the sort of foam at the bottom of the shoe off. And I was like, what is, did I buy a dud pair of running shoes? But it turns out I'm sort of like, I don't know what's happening, but my left foot is rubbing somewhere on the right shoe as I run. And I was like, no, that can't be that bad. And then a week ago, I bought a new pair of shoes, and I was like, let me 2-3 runs in, let me see if it's starting to wear. Same story. So yeah, it's just weird how we do funny little things with one side compared to the other. Things do change, which is quite weird. All right, next question. This one is from Nettie.
I've been following your podcast and enjoying your suggestions for us over 50s. I'm quite a bit over 50. Had a new knee put in last year. I've now got a prosthetic knee on the left knee. But my rehabilitation and training is going great. I've now started running at a very late age, although it's more of a walk run, but we're getting there. The one problem I do seem to have continuing at the moment is my glutes getting very tight, which is sort of limiting the degree to which I can run, because they tighten up at the end of it. I've looked at shoes. I do stretches every morning and after workouts, and I am following the strength training suggestions you've made along with my trainer and physio. So if you've got any other suggestions, that would be great. Thanks.
Cool question from Nettie as well. And I love the fact that after knee replacement, she's running, which is amazing.
Yeah, look, the good thing about that question for Nettie is that I would say that her rehabilitation has been really successful because it's a bilateral issue. So in other words, both glutes. So if there was one side that was more of an issue than the other, then we could possibly link it back to that knee replacement and some sort of compensation or imbalance that's crept in through there. But having this bilateral issue means that it's linked. It is tied into something she's doing, but it's good for me that it's happening on both sides. So that pain could be, and this is where, like, I'm glad she's got therapists, because now she can bounce some of these things I'm going to say off of the therapist. But this is where it's always very helpful to be hands-on, because this could be a classic, like, very weak, inactive glutes, which would be exacerbated if she does a lot of sitting. Okay, so if you're sitting plenty in your day, doing lots of driving or sitting behind a laptop for large portions of your day, then that could be leading to having very inactive glutes. So then even if you are doing the glute exercises, the glutes aren't going to strengthen in the way that they need to. And then this literal pain could be coming from having inactive, weak glutes. Similarly, the fact that it's always the glutes could actually be completely the opposite. And that is that just being in the phase of rehabilitation where you are now is that the glutes are always under pressure. Again, potentially because they're weak and you are working on them so hard, could just be that that is having a carryover effect into the running. They could also be overcompensating and doing too much work for, say, very weak quads. Okay, so again, having had the knee op, it's on both sides. So you may well be in this rehabilitative process, but then you could have like extremely weak quads, and now your glutes are having to do all the stability and shock absorption work on impact when you are running. And so it could be a question of actually you need to up the ante on the strengthening of all of the muscles, front and back. And then I alluded to it with the sitting and whatever, but what can often happen with loads of sitting is just very tight hip flexors. And so then those tight hip flexors mean that when you are running, your glutes and your hamstrings are always under pressure. And again, it could just be that the glutes are weaker than the hamstrings, which is why you're always feeling the pain in the glutes. So I'd have your therapist have a look at that. Have a look at your hips and your hip range of motion. Make sure they're the same on both sides. Make sure that you don't have super tight hip flexors. Get her to make sure that your glutes are firing and doing the work that they're supposed to be doing right from the get-go in every run, in every strength session, so that you are in fact strengthening those glutes, and get some sort of easy to do activation drills for your glutes, like a single leg balance or standing against a wall, and then you just push the leg that's against the wall. You won't move, but you push it against that wall slightly backwards with your heel. So you push it out at like 45 degrees. And that just stimulates that glute to turn on. You do the same on the other side. And then that at least will give you peace of mind that when you are running, your glutes are fired and activating and going right from the get-go. But yeah, there's just a couple of things to troubleshoot with the therapist. And they will then be able to, taking that information, test a few things, then hopefully we can drill down and get to the bottom of why the glutes in particular are going and why it's happening on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. Nettie, thank you for that question. Great question as well. And if we'd love to sort of hear what the response is from the therapist, please do pop that into the forum on the Coach Parry app as well. And don't forget, if you'd like to submit your question, you can click on the link that's in the description of this video or in the show notes with the podcast player you are listening on. Another question coming through, a video one that jumped to the top of the queue from Jose. Here it is, Lindsay.
My name is Jose. I'm in Los Angeles, California, and I've been a member for a little bit over a month. My first 5K run was a few weeks ago. It was St. Jude's Children's Hospital in Long Beach by Queen Mary, and my time was 53 minutes. That's my personal best. I don't think I've run since high school, so that was pretty neat. I really enjoyed everything you guys have done for me so far. I really appreciate that. My question is this. I put it up and then one of the coaches really wasn't able to answer it, so I thought I'd ask you guys. And the workout in the schedule, the workout band 1A or bands 1A, it's talking about using the bands. And right now I don't have money for bands. I don't know how expensive they are, but I had a major oil leak in the car, so I really don't want to be spending money on anything right now. And my question was, I do have some weights that I use with my mom, stroke survivor, and I wanted to know whether that was okay. It's 2 pounds, 4 pounds, and so I wanted to know whether I could substitute leg weights for the bands, and again, 2 pound, 4 pound, which would be better.
If you're over 50 and want to recover from sessions faster, run pain and injury-free, and improve your endurance, then be sure to join Lindsay and I for our upcoming Faster Beyond 50 Masterclass. In it, we'll show you how we helped a 70-year-old run a 47-minute, 18-second 10K and how you can take those exact same principles and apply them in your training. Simply scan the QR code that's on screen right now or click on the link in the description below to save your seat in the training now. We look forward to seeing you there. All right, cool. Great question from Joe. Just so that everybody knows who is listening or watching this video, we live stream strength classes every single week on the Coach Parry app, and that is one of the sessions that Jose is talking about, the strength training on our platform. Lindsay, one of the sessions a week is sort of like a core and band workout. Do you have to have bands for that workout, or could those dumbbells do the trick?
So you definitely don't have to have bands. And look, Jose, the good news is that you don't have to spend the money. And I'll give you some ideas and things that you can do. And yes, you can use those 2 and 4 pound weights, particularly in the beginning. And then the even better news is that in a month or two's time, you can probably get a set of bands off something like Amazon for a couple of dollars, like as in less than 10. So yeah, that is good news, is that they're not expensive, but you can absolutely get by without them in the short term. Look, most of the things, particularly when you're starting out, you can literally work against body weight. So, a band in quite a few of the exercises is not even indicated, but even in the ones where it's indicated, some of the movements you'll be able to substitute straight for a weight. Okay, and you're starting out. And by the way, I love beginners. I love beginners because we love sharing the gift of running. But I also love beginners because you are going to just keep improving, and the improvement itself will keep you running long enough until you get all the benefits that are associated with regular exercise and strength training, improved quality of life, etc. But yeah, well done on your first 5K. I know that's the first of many, and you're going to see tons of improvement. So, yeah, what can you do in terms of using those weights? Always start at the bottom. So I would start with 2 pounds, because I honestly, there's no gain from overdoing it at the beginning. And I've got no idea how strong you are. You haven't run since high school. So to me, start at the bottom with a 2 pound. Look, some of the exercises, if you're going to use the weight, you're going to just need to find a way to kind of strap that to your ankle, I suppose. And if you find the exercise way too easy, then next time out, you'll use the 4 pound. So that's kind of how you decide which of those to use. But then there are some exercises, for example, a hip adduction. So if you have to stand on one leg and have to take your leg away from your body, for example, like that's an easy exercise to do with a band. With the weight, it's going to be quite difficult, but all you do is you substitute that for some form of resistance. So I often do this particular exercise when I'm traveling, for example. I don't have a band. So all I do is I stand up against a wall and then I push with that out. So now my legs aren't going to move, but there's still resistance. So I'm getting strengthening in that position. And then I move a little bit away from the wall, put my leg against the wall, and I push. And then I move a little bit away from the wall, and then I push. So you can just use things in your environment to create some resistance. That's what the band is supposed to be doing, is some resistance. And the weights will absolutely provide you with some of that resistance. If you have to do a hip flexion, for example, so that's an exercise where you are standing on 2 legs and then you lift your leg up, your right leg up, knee first. For that exercise, you can actually physically use your hands on your knee and you drive that knee up and you just resist the movement with your hands. So there's really loads of ways that you can apply resistance without having to have bands. So yeah, don't stress if you don't have bands. You just want to look at the movement and then figure out, okay, well, how can I improve this movement a little bit by adding some resistance, either with someone else's help if you're doing it with a partner, or using my own body weight, or using an immovable object in my environment, or using my hands, or things in the pantry, So, those hip flexors that I say where you can use your own hand, you can also put like a bag of of rice, for example. So a bag of rice, 500 grams, and that'll then sit on your foot, and you can lift your foot up, holding your foot at 90 degrees. So yeah, lots of ways that you can do this without having to go out and buy expensive equipment.
Yeah, Jose, what you can do too is if you are in one of the live classes, you can actually ask one of our strength and conditioning coaches too for the best way to do it without a band. They'll be able to tell you, as Lindsay said, like the hip flexors, the sort of hip flexion exercise, they'll be able to tell you exactly what you can do. So cool, great question. Thank you for that, Lindsay. I absolutely love this next question. It came through as a voice note from Tim, and I know there is a big movement towards this, particularly in the US at the moment. There's a big trend towards using these gadgets, and Tim wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Hi, Berger. I'm calling from Cleveland, Ohio, in the US. And my question relates to continuous glucose monitoring and what your perspective is on that. I'm seeing more stuff online where the devices are being peddled for utilization for performance athletes in addition to diabetes management. And wondering whether, in fact, it doesn't make sense as I seek to optimize, especially my race nutrition, but even my nutrition as I train between races, whether the continuous glucose monitoring devices would have utility to help me understand what the best things are to consume and support me while I'm racing. Again, interested in your perspective if you have one on that. Thank you very much.
Love that question. Lindsay, your thoughts?
Yeah, very cool question. And I love questions that have actually got the answer in them. And so, Tim, the very short answer to your question is yes, there's definitely value in continuous glucose monitoring. Yeah, and you've clearly thought about it, and for all the reasons that you mentioned, to be completely honest. So for you in particular, around your performance race nutrition, great tool to use. Okay, so you would have to use it in your training, because we don't like finding out in a race that our nutrition isn't quite what we would like it to be. So you can't fully stimulate race conditions in training, but we can add 1 to 2 workouts in the 12-week build-up to a marathon, for example, where we can then allow you to actually track your blood glucose in response to the nutrition that you're taking, to give you an idea if you are maintaining a pretty good, stable blood glucose during exercise. Because if you are, that's a good sign, and it means you are providing enough energy, and that on race day, it'll probably be fine. And then, of course, you then, knowing that you can go into the race with confidence, track it during the race, and then you can have a look again after the race and see if there's maybe a little bit more that you can tweak to get it even better. And then during the day, the really cracking use of the glucose monitor is it does a few things. It's not just one reason why it works so well. It works so well because it makes you conscious about what you are putting in. Okay, so a lot of times, if someone asks you to do a food diary, even tomorrow for today, you are going to forget things that you ate, because we do eat things and do things when we're distracted. And so those things you won't even think about. But because of this continuous glucose monitoring, it literally makes you very aware every time you eat, partially because you are interested to see how you are going to respond to what you've eaten. And that brings in the next layer of why the glucose monitoring works, because then you also start to identify which foods really mess with your blood glucose and which ones are actually quite good and keep you quite stable. So that's why that glucose monitoring works so well just in your everyday nutrition, and it helps you to make better decisions going forward, so that you are just plain healthier and ensuring that you are providing yourself with enough energy and building blocks for the exercise that you're doing.
Tim, I love that question. And Lindsay, it's so interesting. I've got a very good friend of mine who's actually a type 1 diabetic, and he's had to wear a continuous glucose monitor for as long as I've known him. This is years. And obviously there is a move at the moment. You can get these sort of devices over the counter now, particularly in the US. And it's just been interesting over the years to see how my mate, Tim, funnily enough, same name, has been tracking, and it's, as you said, when what you monitor, you can improve. And he was just saying it's been amazing to him that things that or food that he didn't think would spike his glucose does, and things that he thinks would have a major effect didn't. So it was like a real eye opener for me, just seeing the sort of things that he's doing. And yeah, I can definitely see the positive impact it could have, particularly on your race day nutrition. I think it is a pretty cool thing to be able to do. Lindsay, one last question that came through, a written question. As I said in this podcast, we do like filtering the video ones up to the top, but I wanted to squeeze this one in because I really like this question, and it's from Richard. Richard was saying, I struggle to push mentally in races. I feel like I'm going as fast as I can, and the heart rate suggests it, but I'm recovered pretty much straight away after crossing the finish line. So obviously still had lots left to give. It's my mind that won't let my body push to its limits. What advice could you give Richard with regards to almost like overriding what your body's saying to keep going and going a bit harder on a race day?
So look, the fact that his heart rate is agreeing with his mental tells me that that's not necessarily the case, that he just can't push himself harder. Things develop at different paces, and we've all got different strengths and weaknesses. And to me, it sounds like Richard has a fairly strong body, but he needs to develop his cardiovascular system more. So your perceived exertion on how hard you are pushing comes from two places. One, and I'm the opposite, Richard. So, I mean, this is why I'm saying people are very different. One, you get the perception of the fatigue that you're feeling in your actual legs. And then you get the perception of the fatigue that's coming from your body's demand or loud shouting for oxygen. Okay. So those are the two biggest kind of pullers. When you do longer events, then we can also pull nutrition into this, because if there's no nutrition, your brain will force you to tank. So those are the three things that are in play. But certainly from my point of view, is that my heart, lungs, cardiovascular system are light years ahead of my muscles, and that's been my entire running career. So my legs only start to catch up a little, but they're always behind my cardiovascular as I'm getting close to race day. Whereas for me, from your question, it sounds like you're the other way around. And so you've got to just keep training and doing the right things in training, so that each time you can allow your legs to push harder and harder, because they can only push as hard as your lungs and heart, or the ability of your body to utilize that oxygen and energy substrates at your lungs. So, there's lots of mental tricks you can play on yourself. You can promise yourself, if you just go a little bit harder, you never have to do this again. You can promise yourself some kind of reward when you get over the finish line. You can self-talk to yourself about pain is temporary, glory lasts forever. There's lots of little mind tricks that you can use to try and push yourself a little bit harder. But fixing the fundamental cause of why you're feeling like that is more important. You're not caving mentally. You are struggling to push through, because in that moment your body is literally telling you you do not have enough oxygen to do what you want to do. You recover quickly from that effort, and again, it depends a little bit on the effort, because let's use a 5K as a perfect example. We all recover very fast from 5K. Okay, so 5K, when you're in it, kilometer 1 and 2 don't feel too bad. 3 feels like a bit of the glory kilometer. Kilometer 4 just feels like you're not going to make it. We have to talk all sorts of positive self-talk to just keep ourselves going. And then the last kilometer, you suddenly feel like you're close enough to the end that you can override that feeling. And then you cross the line and you literally feel like that was it. You couldn't go another step. But then within 2 minutes, you start to have questions of, did I push myself hard enough? 5 minutes later, you're like, damn, 5K, I could have gone faster. And by the afternoon, it's like you didn't run a 5K. So you can't use how quickly you bounce back from a race as the tool for saying, did I push myself hard enough? If you are completely out of breath, your heart rate is telling you you are giving it all, but your legs feel like they can do more, then you need to get your cardiovascular system to catch up with your physical strength and ability. If breathing and heart rate wise, you feel like, flip, man, I wish I could wring more out of these legs, but they're just so dang tight. And then it's a question of getting the legs. It's working on the coordination, doing the speed work, getting stronger in the gym to get those to catch up. But if it's purely like after the race, I just feel like I could have done more, that's a normal feeling. You're always going to have that feeling. If it's happening in half marathons and marathons, and you just next day, day 2, day 3, you just always feel like your muscles recover so quickly, then it's that pure cardiovascular need to catch up.
Great question, Richard. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, Lindsay, wrapping up, you and I both running a marathon this weekend. Looking forward to it. How are you feeling? Just a few days to go.
Yeah, look, I'm feeling good, pretty positive. I do feel a little bit like a stuck record. To put up a disclaimer there is that I'm not sub-3 shape. And I'm still not sure if that's a thing that's linked to me accepting that I am getting a bit older and slower. But I don't think so. I feel like I've been on a good journey since April this year. And I've improved enough and enjoyed the training enough that I feel like next year I can have another shot at a sub-3. So not there yet, but very much looking forward to running in a race for the first time in a while, to be honest. I haven't been able to get myself to a level of fitness where I feel like I've earned a race, if that makes proper sense, or that I'm not scared of the race. So it is a marathon. So I know it's going to get pretty sore at some point, but at least I'm looking forward to starting.
Yeah, let me just state for the record too, I'm definitely not running a sub-3 hour marathon this weekend. That is for sure. But yeah, Lindsay, I think I feel the same as you. Like it's been a long time. I think mine's probably been longer than yours. It's probably close on 10 years for me that I'm actually in decent marathon shape. And yeah, fingers crossed it all goes well for both of us this weekend. So looking forward to it.
Cool. See you in Cape Town.
Yeah, absolutely. And then don't forget, if you have a question you'd like answered on this podcast, all you need to do is click on the link that's in the podcast player or in the description of this video on YouTube. And don't forget that we do filter the video questions up to the top, and we look forward to answering yours on an upcoming episode of the Fast to Beyond 50 podcast. From myself, Brad Nadauld, and the coach, Lindsay Parry, it's cheers.